In a galaxy teeming with intelligent life, the Galactic Alliance stood as the pinnacle of civilization, a union of species bound by treaties of peace, trade, and collective progress. For centuries, its strength lay in its unity, an intricate hierarchy where each member species had a role. Humanity, the newcomers, had only recently earned a place among them. Seen as clever but fragile, humans occupied the lowest tier, their Deathworld origins regarded with suspicion and mild disdain. To survive, humanity learned quickly that it was better to appear unthreatening, compliant, and focused on contributing technological innovation rather than military might. The galaxy viewed Earth as an anomaly, a planet categorized as a death world due to its harsh environment. Its predators, diseases, and volatile climate had forced its inhabitants to develop unparalleled resilience and adaptability over millennia. Yet, the Alliance had little appreciation for this. To the Threxians, one of the most powerful member species, humans were useful only as engineers and scientists, their fragile bodies and emotional unpredictability seen as liabilities. This perception had shaped diplomatic interactions for years, allowing humanity to quietly carve a niche for itself without drawing undue attention. While the Threxians basked in their dominance, their arrogance bred tension among other species. Whispers of dissatisfaction grew louder, though no one dared challenge the established order. Humanity, ever observant, recognized the undercurrents of unrest, but stayed silent, aware that open defiance could cost them their place in the Alliance. Humans instead focused on innovation, building advanced technologies that seemed to promise peace, while quietly preparing for darker possibilities. Survival on Earth had taught them that beneath every facade of civility lay the potential for chaos. As trade routes flourished under the Alliance, prosperity seemed guaranteed. Yet, like all systems built on fragile hierarchies, cracks began to appear. A mysterious series of attacks disrupted vital supply chains, plunging the Alliance into a state of crisis. Entire fleets vanished without a trace, leaving colonies on the brink of famine. The leadership scrambled for answers, their efforts complicated by political infighting. The Threxians, keen to maintain control, sought a scapegoat to unify the Alliance against a common enemy. Their eyes fell on humanity. The official narrative was clear. Humans, with their peculiar technologies and unpredictable nature, had orchestrated the disruptions. Evidence, later revealed as fabricated, painted a damning picture. Human colonies were accused of harboring rogue elements, and their actions were said to threaten the very stability of the Alliance. Few member species questioned the claims, unwilling to risk the ire of the Threxians. Sanctions came swiftly, cutting off trade and isolating humanity from the galactic community. The once lively colonies fell silent, their populations facing starvation and despair. On Earth, leaders convened in secret, grappling with the enormity of the betrayal. Diplomacy had failed, and appeals for justice were ignored. The Threxians tightened their grip, ordering evacuations of human colonies and deploying fleets to enforce compliance. For the first time since joining the Alliance, humanity's survival was not just uncertain, it seemed impossible. The image of weakness they had cultivated for so long now worked against them, leaving them without allies or defenses. Yet, the Threxians had underestimated their prey. Humanity had long understood the precarious nature of their position in the galaxy. Beneath the surface of their peaceful contributions lay decades of preparation, an unspoken acknowledgement of the possibility that one day the galaxy might turn on them. Hidden in the shadows of Earth's development was Project Apex, a contingency plan designed not to preserve peace, but to ensure survival at any cost. It was a gamble, a last resort born of the primal instinct to endure. As the Alliance celebrated what they believed to be humanity's subjugation, whispers of defiance spread among the scattered colonies. Messages encoded in obsolete communication systems carried a single phrase: "Stand ready." The leaders of Project Apex moved quietly, their faces grim as they activated protocols that had been dormant for decades. Supplies were mobilized, weapon systems hidden in plain sight were brought online, and the full scope of humanity's Deathworld heritage began to take shape. In the eyes of the Alliance, humanity remained the same, a race of fragile beings on the brink of collapse. But within human ranks, something primal stirred, a recognition that compliance was no longer an option. Earth's leaders watched as their people rallied, not with despair, but with resolve. The lessons of their harsh homeworld had not been forgotten. They had survived extinction-level events, endured centuries of conflict, and thrived in the face of impossible odds. This was no different. As the first Alliance fleet approached a human colony, prepared to enforce evacuations, its commanders dismissed the scattered resistance as inconsequential. The humans had no true military, no fleets to match the grandeur of the Alliance armada. What they encountered instead was something entirely unexpected. The initial engagements were chaotic, marked not by grand displays of power, but by precision strikes that dismantled the Alliance's overwhelming advantage. The Threxians began to suspect that humanity had hidden far more than they had ever let on. Humanity's response was not a desperate act of rebellion, but a calculated display of power. It was a warning, a glimpse of what lay beneath the mask of submission they had worn for so long. The galaxy had misjudged them, and now the consequences of that miscalculation would ripple through the Alliance. On Earth, Project Apex leaders made a chilling declaration. The time for hiding was over. The crisis began to spiral beyond control as the Alliance struggled to address the disruption of its trade routes. Entire fleets vanished, leaving colonies without supplies and plunging millions into panic. The Threxians seized the opportunity to consolidate their power, framing humanity as the culprit behind the chaos. Through carefully planted evidence, they painted humans as the orchestrators of the attacks, leveraging their position in the Alliance to ensure these claims were accepted without question. The narrative was simple yet damning. Humanity's unpredictable nature and advanced but misunderstood technology had turned them into a threat. Once the accusations were made public, the Alliance moved swiftly to act. Trade embargoes were imposed, cutting off Earth and its colonies from vital resources. Human ambassadors were detained under the guise of ensuring security, while media across the galaxy pushed the Threxian narrative relentlessly. Every human achievement was reframed as evidence of their duplicity, from their ingenuity in technology to their ability to adapt in ways other species found unsettling. Isolation followed, both diplomatic and physical. Member species that had once expressed curiosity or admiration for humanity now distanced themselves, unwilling to risk being associated with the alleged perpetrators. The impact was immediate and devastating. Human colonies, already struggling with the logistical challenges of frontier life, found themselves on the verge of collapse. Starvation and illness swept through settlements cut off from the Alliance's supply chains. Earth itself became a fortress of despair, with its people caught between disbelief and rising anger. The Alliance fleets, led by Threxian commanders, patrolled the edges of human-controlled space, ensuring compliance with the imposed restrictions and responding with force to any attempts at defiance. Despite the dire situation, humanity's leadership recognized the betrayal for what it was, a calculated move to eliminate them as a rising power within the Alliance. The evidence against them was too perfectly timed, and the coordinated sanctions too precise to be a mere reaction. The Threxians sought to weaken humanity not only economically, but psychologically, breaking their spirit before moving to enforce permanent subjugation. However, the Threxians failed to account for the depth of humanity's preparation. Years of cautious diplomacy had been underpinned by a quiet acknowledgement that trust in the Alliance could only extend so far. As embargoes tightened and colonies fell silent, the leadership of Project Apex began to act. Hidden beneath layers of secrecy, The project had been designed not as a weapon of conquest, but as a safeguard against extinction. It was a culmination of humanity's greatest fears and darkest creativity, combining biotechnology, cybernetics, and adaptive warfare strategies into a singular force capable of ensuring survival. Unlike the Alliance, which relied on overwhelming force and established hierarchies, Project Apex was built on the principles of unpredictability and asymmetry. The first phase of the betrayal reached its climax when the Alliance, emboldened by their perceived success, announced a plan to evacuate key human colonies under the pretext of humanitarian intervention. The true goal was clear: displace the populations, strip the colonies of resources, and further isolate Earth. Threxian commanders led fleets into human space, expecting little resistance. They encountered not submission, but calculated defiance. Across human-controlled systems, encrypted messages carried a simple command: activate. The response was both silent and swift. On the surface, nothing appeared to change. Colonies continued to endure, fleets remained docked, and Earth maintained its outward compliance. Yet, behind the scenes, humanity's hidden strength began to coalesce. Supplies were rerouted through shadow networks, old and seemingly obsolete technologies were brought online, and personnel disappeared from public view, leaving behind only cryptic instructions. The Alliance, focused on its larger goal of neutralizing humanity, missed these signs entirely. Within days, reports began filtering back to the Threxian leadership of Alliance fleets encountering unexpected resistance. Supply ships meant to enforce embargoes vanished without a trace, and communication disruptions spread across key systems. Human colonies, previously silent, began broadcasting encrypted signals the Alliance could not decipher. Threxian analysts dismissed these developments as minor annoyances, underestimating their significance. In truth, they were witnessing the opening moves of a campaign that had been decades in the making. As humanity's response unfolded, it became clear that they had been prepared for this moment. Every step of the Alliance's plan was countered with precision, exposing vulnerabilities the Threxians had not anticipated. What began as an effort to isolate and weaken humanity transformed into a series of small but decisive victories for the so-called underdogs. The human strategy was simple: avoid direct confrontation, disrupt supply lines, and exploit the overconfidence of the Threxian forces. It was a strategy born not of desperation, but of centuries of survival on a hostile world. The Threxians, accustomed to controlling every aspect of galactic diplomacy and warfare, found themselves blindsided. Humanity's technological ingenuity, once dismissed as a curiosity, now became a weapon in its own right. The tools and systems that had earned them a place in the Alliance were repurposed into instruments of defiance. Viral AI swarms infiltrated Alliance communication networks, spreading disinformation and sowing chaos. Ships once used for exploration were retrofitted into stealth vessels capable of ambushing unsuspecting fleets. Each move revealed a new facet of humanity's capability, challenging the Alliance's perception of their weakness. As the Alliance leadership scrambled to respond, divisions began to emerge among its member species. Some questioned the validity of the accusations against humanity, while others expressed concerns over the Threxians' heavy-handed tactics. These doubts, however, were quickly suppressed, with the Threxians doubling down on their narrative. Humanity, they argued, had deceived the Alliance for years, hiding their true nature while plotting to disrupt galactic stability. The message was clear: humanity was a threat that had to be neutralized. Amid the chaos, the human leadership remained focused on their ultimate goal: survival. They understood that the Alliance's betrayal had exposed not only their vulnerabilities, but also their strengths. Humanity's response was not about reclaiming a place within the Alliance, but about demonstrating that they would not be erased. The actions of the Threxians had forced their hand, and now the galaxy would witness the consequences of underestimating a Deathworld species. As the second phase of the conflict unfolded, the balance of power began to shift. Humanity's hidden arsenal, long dismissed as theoretical or impractical, became a reality that the Alliance could no longer ignore. Each engagement revealed a new layer of their resilience and adaptability, forcing the Threxians to confront the possibility that they had made a grave miscalculation. The Alliance had sought to break humanity's spirit, but instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. Project Apex was never meant to be revealed under ideal circumstances. It was a contingency, a product of humanity's understanding of its precarious position in a galaxy ruled by stronger, older species. Designed in secrecy, it was a testament to Earth's history of survival against overwhelming odds. As the Alliance fleets encroached further into human space, the time for secrecy ended. The activation of Project Apex signaled not just defiance, but a fundamental shift in how humanity would engage with the galaxy moving forward. The first signs of humanity's retaliation were subtle. Alliance patrols began experiencing anomalies, ships disappearing without distress signals, supply routes disrupted without evidence of sabotage. Initially dismissed as logistical errors or rogue elements, these incidents escalated into patterns that the Alliance could no longer ignore. What they were witnessing was not random rebellion, but the calculated dismantling of their operational infrastructure. Project Apex had been built on humanity's Deathworld legacy, leveraging the lessons learned from surviving Earth's most hostile environments. At its core was an understanding that conventional warfare against the Alliance was untenable. Instead, humanity relied on asymmetrical tactics, exploiting the complacency and overconfidence of their adversaries. Central to this strategy was adaptability, a trait the Alliance had underestimated at every turn. The bioweapons deployed were not traditional pathogens, but engineered ecosystems, capable of overwhelming the sterile environments of Alliance vessels and outposts. These weapons targeted the vulnerabilities of species that had long thrived in controlled, predictable conditions. Artificial intelligence systems, designed to evolve and learn autonomously, infiltrated the Alliance's networks, rendering their communications chaotic and unreliable. Even the stars themselves became tools of warfare as humanity manipulated gravitational anomalies and debris fields to disrupt fleet movements. The impact of these measures was immediate and devastating. Entire Alliance fleets found themselves stranded, their advanced navigation systems rendered useless by distortions introduced by human interference. Supply depots became unusable as bioweapons created hostile microenvironments, forcing their evacuation. For a species like the Threxians, who thrived on order and control, this chaos was unthinkable. They had viewed humanity as primitive in comparison, their technological contributions clever but ultimately minor. Now, they were faced with the reality that humanity's ingenuity had always been a double-edged sword. On the ground, cybernetic warriors began to emerge as the face of humanity's counteroffensive. These were not soldiers in the traditional sense, but enhanced operatives whose designs blurred the line between machine and organism. Their capabilities were tailored to the environments they operated in, from the zero-gravity fields of space stations to the hostile atmospheres of uninhabitable planets. What they lacked in numbers, they made up for in precision, each strike calculated to dismantle key aspects of the Alliance's operations. For the Alliance, this was not just a military campaign, but a psychological battle. The strategies deployed by humanity defied conventional logic, introducing unpredictability into every engagement. Threxian commanders, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with superior numbers and firepower, found themselves constantly outmaneuvered. Every loss, no matter how small, eroded their confidence and morale. Alliance species that had initially supported the Threxian-led sanctions began questioning the wisdom of antagonizing humanity. As the campaign escalated, it became clear that humanity was not fighting for dominance, but survival. Every move was designed to send a message. They would not be eradicated. This was most evident in their refusal to engage in direct confrontations. Rather than meeting the Alliance fleets head-on, humanity drew them into battles they were ill-equipped to fight. Ambushes in asteroid fields, targeted strikes on critical supply lines, and coordinated disruptions of infrastructure became the hallmarks of their approach. Despite the successes, the cost of these actions weighed heavily on humanity. Project Apex had been designed with survival as its only goal, and the measures it employed reflected that. The bioweapons and cybernetic enhancements came with ethical implications that humanity could not ignore. Leaders wrestled with the morality of their actions, knowing that they were unleashing forces that could not easily be contained. Civilians, too, grappled with the reality of their newfound role in the galaxy. They had spent years cultivating an image of peaceful contributors, only to reveal themselves as something far more dangerous. For the Threxians, the retaliation shattered their perception of control. Every countermeasure they employed was met with a new, unforeseen challenge. Humanity's adaptability, once dismissed as a minor trait, now became their greatest strength. The very conditions that had made Earth a death world were now humanity's most powerful weapons. What the Threxians had failed to understand was that humanity's apparent fragility had always been a facade. Behind it lay a resilience born of necessity, honed over millennia of surviving the impossible. The broader alliance began to splinter under the pressure. Member species that had previously supported the sanctions against humanity now sought to distance themselves from the conflict. Some expressed outrage at the Threxians for their role in instigating the crisis, while others feared becoming the next target of humanity's ire. The Threxians, once confident in their ability to suppress humanity, now faced increasing dissent within their ranks. The carefully constructed narrative of humanity as a dangerous but manageable threat was collapsing. Humanity, for its part, remained resolute. The activation of Project Apex was not just a response to betrayal, but a declaration of their place in the galaxy. They had spent years hiding their true capabilities, believing that compliance was the key to survival. The betrayal had proven otherwise, forcing them to abandon the pretense of weakness. What the Alliance had underestimated was not just humanity's capacity for innovation, but their willingness to embrace their own savagery when pushed to the brink. As the conflict reached its zenith, the Alliance began to realize the full scope of what they were up against. Humanity's response was not just a military campaign, but a testament to their refusal to be eradicated. Each action, from the disruption of fleets to the deployment of cybernetic operatives, reinforced a single message. Survival was not negotiable. For the first time in its history, the Alliance faced an enemy that could not be easily subdued. Humanity had shown them what it truly meant to be a Deathworlder. The Alliance, once a unified body of dominant species, found itself fractured and disoriented in the aftermath of humanity's counteroffensive. The very systems that had enabled their dominance, strict hierarchies, predictable strategies, and reliance on technological superiority, had been systematically dismantled. Humanity had turned the galaxy's most stable structure into a house of cards. The Threxians, at the center of the Alliance's power, were forced to confront a reality they had never anticipated. Their failure to comprehend the depths of human resilience and ingenuity had cost them control. As the dust settled, the initial silence from humanity was broken by a simple but pointed declaration broadcast across all known Alliance frequencies: "We will survive." The message was not a threat, but a statement of fact, signaling the end of humanity's willingness to play the role of the subservient member species. It was clear that the Alliance's betrayal had fundamentally altered humanity's perception of its place in the galaxy. No longer content to operate from a position of appeasement, humans now demanded recognition not as equals, but as a power to be reckoned with. The Threxians, whose arrogance had instigated the crisis, found themselves isolated. Their narrative about humanity's supposed duplicity no longer held weight in the face of overwhelming evidence that the accusations had been fabricated. The bioweapons, cybernetic warriors, and tactical ingenuity displayed by humanity had not come from an aggressor seeking conquest, but from a species forced into a corner. As these truths came to light, member species that had once supported the Threxians began withdrawing their allegiance, fearing retribution or further destabilization. For the broader alliance, the crisis triggered a reckoning. Questions arose about the wisdom of their rigid hierarchies and the complacency that had allowed the Threxians to dominate unchecked. Humanity's actions, while brutal, had exposed the flaws in a system built on exploitation and control. Some species began advocating for reforms, seeking to prevent a repeat of the betrayal and its catastrophic consequences. Others, however, doubled down on their belief that humanity was a threat, calling for continued measures to contain them. On Earth, the aftermath of Project Apex brought its own challenges. While the immediate threat from the Alliance had been neutralized, humanity was left grappling with the moral implications of its actions. The bioweapons deployed had devastated not only enemy infrastructure, but also ecosystems on Alliance-controlled worlds. Cybernetic enhancements, while effective, had raised ethical questions about the lengths humanity was willing to go for survival. Leaders debated the future of these technologies, weighing the necessity of maintaining them against the risks of becoming the very monsters the galaxy had accused them of being. The psychological toll on humanity was equally profound. Years of cultivating an image of peaceful compliance had been shattered in a matter of weeks. Civilians who had once taken pride in their contributions to the Alliance now found themselves viewed with a mix of fear and awe. The revelation of Project Apex's existence further divided public opinion, with some seeing it as a necessary evil and others condemning it as a betrayal of humanity's values. The scars left by the conflict would not heal easily, and the question of what humanity had become loomed large. The Alliance, meanwhile, faced its own existential crisis. Without the Threxians' unchallenged dominance, the balance of power shifted dramatically. Species that had previously been sidelined by the hierarchical structure now saw an opportunity to assert themselves. Former allies of the Threxians began forming new coalitions, seeking to fill the power vacuum left by their diminished influence. Amid this turmoil, some factions reached out to humanity, not with demands, but with tentative offers of diplomacy. Humanity's response to these overtures was measured. Trust once freely given had been irrevocably broken. The betrayal had taught them that survival depended not on alliances, but on self-reliance and strategic leverage. While Earth's leaders engaged in negotiations, they did so with a newfound understanding of their position in the galaxy. Humanity was no longer the underdog but a wild card, unpredictable and unyielding. This shift in perception marked the beginning of a new era in galactic politics, one in which humanity played a central role. For the Threxians, the loss of their dominance was complete. Stripped of their credibility and isolated from their former allies, they retreated to their home systems to regroup. The cost of their arrogance was evident not only in the collapse of their influence, but also in the grudging respect humanity had earned from other species. The Threxians, who had once dismissed humans as insignificant, now found themselves fearing the very resilience they had sought to suppress. As humanity rebuilt, the legacy of Project Apex became a focal point for debate. The technological advancements it had unleashed were undeniable, but so were the ethical dilemmas they presented. Bioweapons capable of reshaping entire ecosystems, AI systems designed to operate autonomously, and cybernetic enhancements that blurred the line between human and machine. These innovations were both a testament to humanity's ingenuity and a warning of its potential for destruction. Earth's leaders recognized the need to balance these advancements with accountability, ensuring that the lessons of the crisis were not forgotten. The galaxy, too, began to adapt to the new reality. While some species continued to view humanity with suspicion, others saw in them a potential ally against the remnants of Threxian influence. The once fractured alliance began to explore reforms, driven by the recognition that the betrayal of one of its members had nearly led to its collapse. Humanity's survival and retaliation had forced a reckoning, not just for the alliance, but for every species that had underestimated them. In the end, humanity's emergence from the crisis was not a victory in the traditional sense, but a testament to their resilience. They had endured betrayal, isolation, and the threat of extinction, only to rise stronger and more determined. The galaxy had witnessed their true nature, not as conquerors, but as survivors, willing to do whatever it took to endure. The cost had been high, but the message was clear. Humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated or dismissed. The final legacy of the crisis lay not in the destruction it had caused, but in the changes it had wrought. Humanity had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, survival was possible through ingenuity, determination, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. The galaxy, forever altered by the events of the conflict, now faced an uncertain future in which humanity stood as both a reminder of the past and a harbinger of what was yet to come.